So good morning everyone and everybody who's logged in and everybody who's listening back. Welcome to the Diabetes Peer Support Group. So today we're going to cover a little bit of the guidance which has been released the other day, just to go over where people with diabetes stand. And then afterwards we've got Jake from Primary Care Network to answer any questions and just to cover anything which you may desire. So I will share my screen. So if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Brilliant. Fantastic. So we're just going to cover a little bit of the government guidance. So obviously, as we know, it's changed to stay alert. So everything in this slide has been taken from the government website and also Diabetes UK as well, just to make sure that everybody understands the guidance and just to give you a bit of a clearer outline of as to what has been said. So the UK government is now saying stay at home as much as possible, work from home if you can, limited contact with. If you go out, keep a 2-metre distance, as we all know, that is how it normally was anyway, but now you can meet up with one other person from a different household as long as you keep that 2-metre distance. Same as usual, wash your hands regularly, and if you or anyone in your house, you must self-isolate. So that's just what the basic outline is. So what does it mean? What does this mean for someone with diabetes? See if it works. There we go. So diabetics are on critically vulnerable list, so you're at moderate risk. So again, this is taken from the NHS website. So basically, you aren't on the extremely vulnerable list for people, for example, with COPD or anything like that, but you are on the critically vulnerable list. So here's just a bit of an outline what that means. So if you're at moderate risk from coronavirus, it's very important that you follow the staying at home and avoid catching coronavirus, obviously still following the guidelines, washing your hands, etc. It means you should only leave your home for important things like getting food or medicine or exercise. But obviously with this here, it says exercise once a day. Now it's saying you can exercise more than once a day, but keep your 2-metre distance. And I believe the sports you can play are basketball, tennis and golf, obviously keeping your distance from people, but it's mostly solo sports, except for basketball, which I thought was quite amusing, if I'm honest. And unlike people at high risk, you will not get a letter from the NHS. So why are diabetics on this list? So basically, here is just an explanation taken from Diabetes UK, explaining why diabetics are on this vulnerable list. So if you have a read over this, it's talking about when a person with diabetes contracts the illness, their blood sugar levels can fluctuate. Obviously, that's something that diabetics try to prevent, because the illness is releasing stored glucose into the bloodstream to give you energy. But the virus can produce insulin to cope with this. So the blood sugar levels can rise if you catch the coronavirus. So that's why diabetics are on this list. So the symptoms of coronavirus, just cover this. So it's a new cough and high temperature. So if you do find you've got any of these symptoms, don't go to your GP or pharmacist. Don't go out, because you must self-isolate if you live alone for 7 days. If you don't live alone, you should self-isolate for, if somebody in your household catches it, self-isolate for 14 days. But then at the end of 14 days, if you catch it, self-isolate for another 7 days, etc., which is a little bit confusing. But obviously it explains it there. And also follow the advice from your GP, practice nurse or your diabetic team. So what to do if you have coronavirus symptoms and and are diabetic. So obviously keep checking your blood sugar levels, make sure that they're all okay, they've got a good balance, stay hydrated as well. Obviously keep eating and drinking, try and avoid sugary drinks. Obviously explains a little bit more there about more in detail about your blood sugar levels. This can be found on Diabetes UK. Obviously it's a difficult time for us all, but just make sure that you're keeping a well-balanced diet, etc. And obviously if you can't cope with the symptoms and you feel like they're getting worse, call the NHS 111 line. Obviously for emergencies, call 999, but the 111 helpline is there as well. So appointments for diabetes. So obviously don't go into your appointments if you have the symptoms of coronavirus. Most of the things are cancelled or are waiting to be rescheduled. So obviously check if there is any appointments. There should be a number on the top of your letter. If you've got any hospital appointments, give it a call and make sure that they are cancelled. So obviously you don't want to be missing that, and obviously some will be rescheduled, but just make sure that you are checking that they are definitely cancelled. If you have got an eye screening, they should be using PPE, which I'm absolutely sure that there will be. And obviously keep checking your feet daily, keep a healthy diet, and try to keep active as much as possible. So where can I get more support and advice? So I've mentioned it throughout. So you can go on the Diabetes UK website, which will give you pretty much all of the advice and more, which you've just seen in the slides. Also the NHS website and the government website as well for more details about that as well. Diabetes UK also have a staying at home and managing your diabetes leaflet, which is very useful. You can download it. You can order it through post, so that would be there as well for you. So let me just click back onto you lot. Hopefully, there we go. So I think I've stopped sharing my screen, I'm not quite sure. Yep, so is that stopped then?
Yeah, I can see your face again.
Brilliant. So is that clear? Is there any questions regarding that?
It doesn't apply to me because I'm actually being clinically shielded.
Yeah. And how are you finding that, Graham?
It's getting more and more difficult.
Yeah.
Because I'm on my own as well.
Right, okay, yeah. So as you saw in the slides, if you go on the diabetes website, there is a lot of support out there in terms of self-isolating and shielding. If you're finding it's the support regarding going and getting shopping or supplies, there's the Doncaster hub, which will be as well. If it's obviously last week we heard from David from IAP team as well. If you're finding you're struggling in terms of your mental well-being, that's there as well for you. So you can give them a call. Are you finding you're managing your diabetes well, or are you struggling with that?
Well, I'm very, very recently diagnosed with type 2.
Yeah.
So I had my initial chat with a diabetes nurse, and then the pandemic hit, so I've not been able to attend the introductory meetings about managing diabetes. My screening appointments have all been cancelled. So yeah, I'm still a bit in the air about it. Getting food, not an issue. It's the difficulty of no social contact.
Yeah, Absolutely, yeah, I can imagine, because it's with human beings, aren't we? At the end of the day, like that social contact is key. If you try and call your GP, they might be able to give you some, because every GP's surgery is working differently at the minute. But if you try and give them a call, see what their advice would be in terms of rescheduling those appointments, because some are doing it online now. I don't know if you've already tried to do this, so apologies if you have, but yeah, some GPs are doing appointments online, like possibly on Zoom, hopefully, so it's not already there for you. So yeah, and also with the social contact as well, there are a lot of community groups and the hub as well, who are offering that social connection via phone. So also, if you look on the Doncaster community hub, you are able to have someone who would call you and build that relationship via the phone, just for a bit of a like human interaction, but obviously not physical interaction. So it's difficult for everyone, but especially for people like yourself, Graham, who are self-isolating, who are by themselves, and who need that social interaction right now, because all we all want to do is just go out and give our nearest and dearest a cuddle, isn't it? So but yeah, there is further support out there if you do want it, obviously through phone calls. Jake, I don't know if you want to step in and offer some advice around appointments.
Appointments, I mean, the GPs are still working the same hours they would normally. Obviously, we're not getting people physically into the surgery. We're doing a variety of telephone and video appointments. So you can always speak to a GP. And in severe cases, we are bringing people into the surgery if the GP needs to see them in person. But that would only be in extreme situations. Generally, we're doing it either over the phone or over video. That is as available as it was before COVID. So it's just as easy to see a GP now as it was. If anything, more so, because the telephone conversations tend to take less time than the physical in-person conversations. But there's still the same health services available. It's just slightly different because we're trying not to see people as much.
Yeah, the screenings I'm talking about are the hospital-based ones that must be done at the hospital.
Mm.
And because I am clinically shielded, I am not allowed out.
Yeah.
I cannot attend anything else. I'm fine doing over Zoom or anything.
So yeah, it's tricky to know. Obviously, to know when the hospital ones would be up and running again. Maybe, as I mentioned before, try and give them a call to see when they should be rescheduling. It's just such a difficult time for you. I can imagine, Graham. So fingers crossed they will be rescheduled sooner rather than later for you. So shall we head over to Jake now, and you could maybe give some advice on medication, and Graham, if you've got any questions regarding that, because obviously, like you said, you're newly diagnosed, so you might have some questions around that to help you manage and cope a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, by means of introduction, my name's Jake. I work as a practice pharmacist in a couple of different GP surgeries in the north of Doncaster. So I do a variety of medicine reviews and handling patient medicines and things. So you say you're recently diagnosed. Did they manage to get you stable on your treatment? Obviously, but you by no means obligated to tell me what sort of drugs you're on and things. But did they manage to get you relatively stable before COVID hit? I presume you.
No. It was literally a case of I was diagnosed. A few weeks later, I had my first appointment with the surgery's diabetic nurse to have the brief chat and talk about how things would proceed from there. Then pandemic hit and rug just pulled. So
Right.
absolutely no support whatsoever now.
So are you currently being treated, or is it just a case of lifestyle and wait and see?
I was issued with medication, but it's all the other monitoring and also the I think there's like a mini course that the surgery books you onto.
Oh yes, yeah.
Help with managing, but obviously all that is that's gone now because of the pandemic and because of the NHS shielding. For me, it doesn't end until June 30th unless I hear any different.
Yes. Now I'm not sure. I know the sort of counselling program you're talking about. I'm not sure if they're running that if they've changed that to be a virtual service. So there's a number for it, but the website doesn't specify anything to do with COVID. So I'm not sure if that's running or not. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's probably a silly question if you knew, but is there anything you're not sure about? Anything that wasn't fully explained to you about diabetes? Did they tell you what it is? Did they?
I know it's primarily around the body not being able to manage insulin. So and some of the side effects. So I know some from reading up, but there were lots and lots of questions about how to change my diet to help. So there's been a lot of confusion of just me trying to work it out myself as much as possible, and it's not easy.
It's not. No, it's. I mean, diet-wise, I suppose the most important thing is the obvious one: avoiding really high sugary things as much as possible. So fizzy drinks, sweets and chocolate. That's not to say you can't have them. It's in moderation. So just accept that they're obviously going to make your blood sugar spike. So it's keeping them to a minimum if you can. The other major one is relatively low in fat, and calories generally. Just watching your calories, watching your weight. Weight tends to be a negative feedback cycle with diabetes, so it tends to increase your weight, which makes the diabetes worse, which increases your weight. So it's not dieting per se, just watching what you eat. Trying to avoid. I mean, it's difficult because it spills into general healthy diet advice. So trying to avoid fatty and fried foods. But diabetes specifically, it's minimizing how much high sugary things you consume and generally minimizing fat in your diet. They're the two major ones. Obviously, there's plenty of other healthy diet things that trying to avoid processed meats, trying to eat plenty of fruit and veg and vitamins and minerals and things. The important thing with diabetes is watching your calories. Is making sure you're not overeating. That's always a balance between how much exercise you do, but at the moment if you're shielding, you're probably not doing as much. So just be aware that you won't need to eat as much to fuel your body. Anything again, it's difficult to give specific dietary advice. I suppose what would normally happen is the nurse would get you to write a diary of what you've eaten and go through that with you. But just generally minimizing calories, high sugar and fat is the broad strokes of it. Any Any questions about your diet? Did you have any particular questions, or were you just looking for general advice?
Ultimately, it was just really kind of explaining the situation. I've bought a number of books about diabetes, which I'm slowly trying to go through, occasionally adding to the confusion.
They can be a little dry, can't they? Yes.
Yeah. I think really it's just a case of really waiting for the pandemic to go past, this shielding to be lifted, so I can actually be put back onto a program of direction and care, so I can manage it a lot better by myself, because I'll have experience and understanding passed onto me through education. Because trying to teach myself, while it's possible,
yes,
it is difficult without having somebody to affirm what you think you've learnt.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I mean, obviously, if you do have any questions today, shout up. I mean, you were right in effectively, diabetes is either you're not producing enough insulin, or the insulin you're producing isn't working. Is the upshot. Insulin is it's the key to your body using glucose. So without the insulin, your body can't use the glucose it's got, which tends to lead to an increased level of glucose, which you would know as sugar. So that leads to a variety of various effects, but fundamentally, it's an insulin problem, as you say. Generally, I mean, you mentioned you were starting on treatment. I'm going to assume at least one of those treatments is metformin. That's generally the first line. It's two major effects. One, in that it reduces the amount of sugar your body produces, and the second is that it increases the sensitivity of your body to insulin. So it sort of ramps up the insulin activity and turns down the glucose production. So that tends to be the first line. You mentioned you were slightly diagnosed. What's if you don't mind me asking, what was your? I presume you had HB1AC done. They will have given you a number for that.
I have absolutely no idea.
How did they diagnose you as having diabetes? I presume you had a blood test and.
Yeah, it was actually a couple of blood tests. I think one as an investigation, and the second one was to confirm.
Right. Okay. I mean the key thing to understand with that, you mentioned you were type 2 diabetic. Type 1 is different. That's more of a genetic thing. But type 2 diabetes, the important thing to remember, especially as you were mentioning your mental health, is it can be reversible. A low calorie diet and plenty of exercise, which again at the moment is difficult, but a low calorie diet, watching your weight, plenty of exercise can definitely massively improve it, and in a lot of cases can, I don't want to say cure, because we don't trying to use the word cure. It's more that it's into remission, but it can go a long way towards improving. It certainly improves your response to the medication you're taking, and in some cases it can remove the need for medication. You note I asked you earlier on if you were being treated. That's because a lot of diabetics can, if they get the diet and sort of lifestyle in general to a sufficient control to a sufficient degree, some diabetics don't need treatment at all. So the important thing to stress is don't think this is a life sentence or a death sentence. You know, you're not saddled with it forever necessarily, and even if you are, there's 1,000,001 treatments. So there's lots and lots of ways to get it under control. So there will be a way that works for you. But again, watching your diet, doing plenty of exercise, and you'll again, it can't be overstated, the mental aspect of it, especially in times like this when we're all social isolating. To have been given, to have been given a serious diagnosis at the same time, I can only imagine. But it's about trying to keep your spirits up, as Faye said, access the support where it's available. But anything you mentioned, obviously you try to teach yourself. Is there anything you're not sure about? Is there any terms you've read in a book that you're not sure what they mean? Anything about your medicine that you're unsure about? Any problems you're having with that?
Well, I think I've definitely had an increase in cramping, but I don't know if that's the metformin or the other one they've given me for cholesterol.
I would presume it's a statin, so that it's more likely to be a statin, I would have thought. That tends to be how recently did you start them? We're talking last couple of weeks.
We are looking at March time.
March, okay. I say it's more likely to be the statin. I would probably, again, it's been 2 months. I would maybe give another month or two. If the cramping's still a regular issue, that's maybe something to discuss with your doctor, because it might be that we try a different statin. They all work in subtle. It's not everyone tolerates all of them, but don't put up with the cramping. It's by no means something that's guaranteed. But again, it's only March, so give it another month or two, because a lot of times that once your body settles into it, you'll generally notice that subsides. But obviously, if it doesn't, give your doctor a ring. Sorry, I'm aware that diabetes is such a broad issue. I don't want to just splurge out everything I know. Is there anything, if you let me know which bits you're not sure about, I can sort of talk a bit more about them. Or
the things actually, it really is about the changing the types of food that I may be eating, because I know some is about trying to switch out for brown rice and whole grain and whole wheat stuff, but even then there's some items, like even if they might be full of seeds, is bread basically a no-no? What is it still too easily absorbed? Things like the crisp breads, are they worse than bread? And it's really kind of things that having a diabetic dietitian to actually talk to.
Obviously, I'm by no means an expert in diet. I wouldn't say anything is a no-no. The important thing is it's in sort of moderation. Things like bread, like I say, going for the brown versions tends to be healthier. But the things like bread and rice and pasta will generally be broken down in your body into sugar. So that they do release gradually over time. I would, again, it's not my field of expertise, but in moderation, bread should be fine. Diabetics can still have bread. It's just understanding that bread is broken down into sugar, so it will have an effect on your levels. So just portion size is the key thing, rather than what you're at. Not that what you're eating isn't important, but portion size is more important, I would say.
Sorry, random question about bread. Have you ever made your own bread?
Many years ago.
Right, it's just in the Bentley group for diabetes support, we actually have a gentleman who makes his own bread, and he brings it in and he's been teaching everyone else and telling them how to make it and things. And he said that's his way of still getting to have bread, but then he added things like that in it and making it okay for your diabetes. So I don't know if you want to try doing that again. I'm sure there's some recipes. He does all different types. They're beautiful, really, but obviously without the additives and things, they do go out of date quite quickly. And he's got quite a big family, so he manages to share it out. But yeah, just might be an idea to have a look online and see if there's anyone who said post these online or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's any other questions? Anything you're?
Don't think so.
It's a broad topic, isn't it? It's do try to keep an eye on how many the calories in the things you're eating, and you know that portion size as well is one that tends to catch people out. I know, for example, breakfast cereal. If you measure out how much, I think the recommended portion is 30 grams, and if you actually measure out 30 grams of cereal, it's a very small amount compared to what we probably know have. So just keep an eye on portion sizes and calorie levels and things.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you have any questions, shout up. Again, your doctor surgery, I don't know exactly which doctor surgery you're at, but most of them tend to be running fairly normally, apart from not getting people in. So if you do have any pressing medical concerns, and normally a doctor will ring you back.
Yeah.
And they've still got the same diabetic nurses and nurses and pharmacists in. So there's normally someone there that can help you if you've got any questions.
Yeah.
All the variety of sport networks that I mentioned, so Diabetes UK and the like.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Brilliant. I hope that has answered some of your questions. Next week we do have someone leading a mindfulness session for diabetes, so maybe that might give people some new ways to obviously manage the stress and anxiety, because obviously we're all feeling the same, but obviously for yourself probably worse than us, because I can't imagine the situation that you're in, to be honest, because it's so we have got somebody coming next week to give hints and tips of how to cope with your stress and anxiety, and giving you methods if you do feel you're getting a bit anxious, and ways that you can manage that as well. So overall, are there any last questions at all? Anything regarding the new government guidance, or any last questions to Jake regarding medication?
Not
Or
from me.
healthcare in general, if there's anything you're not sure about.
Yeah.
Nothing that's immediately leaping to mind.
That's fine. Well, our email is doncaster@doncaster.gov.uk. So if there are any questions in between now and the next session in a fortnight, more than welcome to email, and we'll try and help you as much as possible, as well as even if you want the contact details for the hub, or some phone support from community groups, etc. We can also do that for you as well.
Yes.
So,
if you want to email, just to give your email address, we can get the PowerPoint slide that Faye presented at the start across to you as well.
Sorry, I missed that. My connection seems to be a bit choppy.
Just if you wanted to email across, I'm not sure how you found out about this, but either on Facebook or send us an email, and we can get you the slides that Faye did earlier sent across to you with all the links to the actual pages on the diabetes UK website.
Right, okay, thank you.
No problem. Well, thank you ever so much for joining, and thank you for Jake as well. I hope you found this useful, and the next one will be on the 27th of May, so that's in a fortnight time, and like I mentioned, we are having someone in to talk about mindfulness. So thank you so much for this morning, and it's been brilliant to see you all.